everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm Sheraton Lewis, and this is my channel Showing the Ends. Now, normally, those who watch me regularly, they will know that I normally always have quite a bit to write in the description of the program. Please excuse me, I'm going to just put on my lips are feeling a bit dry. Oh well. Yes. Yeah, normally I would put a lot in the description. I didn't really think I needed to today. Oh, hello Lisa. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, this evening. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you here. Yeah, but now I had touched previously, I think it was, which video was it I touched on the strikes? I'd touched on the strikes on a Friday video, and I did a very quick reading on them, but I didn't really go very much into detail. But yes, we have a situation here in Britain. I'm sure some of you, my British viewers, are more than aware of what's happening. And as for my international viewers, I have to tell you, things are not great. You know, there's a Shakespeare saying, there's something, there's something rotten in Denmark. Well, that Shakespeare saying. Oh, thank you very much, Lisa. That Shakespeare saying is very apt in regards to Britain. There's something rotten in Britain. And if you're British and not asleep, then you know what that something is. Frankly. I mean, I think this is a better angle. Yeah. Yeah, you know what that something is. Now, last week, it was last week we were in the Arctic. I mean, in London, to have such low temperatures in early December and so much snow in London, that's a once in a decade thing. It was a madness. Me, I'm an ex-girl guide, so I'm literally prepared for everything. I had on my winter tracks. Unfortunately, what I wasn't prepared for is my boots disintegrating as I'm walking through the snow. The soles of my boots just totally disintegrated. And the beauty of wearing the tracks is because it's got the coils, it stopped my feet from getting too wet. They did get wet though. Yeah. At least I didn't, go flying across the ice and land in an ungainly position and break any bones. So that was fortunate. Now some of the other things that are happening in Britain at the moment. Let's see. Well, apart from the weather, thank goodness we're having the big thaw. Yes, so it's no longer, minus degrees anymore. Although, as you can see, I've still got my hoodie on, because a bit chilly, and I don't think the heating's kicked on yet, but never mind. Some of the other things that are happening is massive inflation. There's massive, massive, massive inflation. It's become ridiculous. I don't know if I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, but I often shop at Lidl's. And let's see, a month ago, let's say a month ago, A month ago, I went to Lidl's to buy a loaf of bread. The bread was 99p last year, or earlier on this year, actually. And then I went there and it went up to 109. And I was like, okay, it's £1 and 9 pence. Fine. Then a couple weeks ago, and that's a couple weeks from the last time I bought a loaf of bread. A couple weeks later, I go back to the shop, it's £1.15. Same thing with the eggs. They used to be 209 earlier on in the year. I went to the shop a few weeks ago, they were £2.20, then they went up to £2.39. And that's lucky. You literally cannot buy 2 dozen large free range eggs anywhere else. If you can get 2 dozen free range eggs, large free range eggs, for less than £3, then you're fortunate in Britain today. Yeah, that's from Hamlet, exactly, Lisa. So then you're very, very fortunate today. And that's if you can get eggs, because apparently there's this bird flu thing going around. So they're having to cull loads of hens, and there's hardly any eggs around. Which I find it interesting that they always seem to have the battery farm eggs, but the free range ones are the really hard ones to get hold of. But what do I know? I don't know anything about rearing chickens. I have no idea about that. I've never reared a chicken in my life. In fact, the closest I've ever come to rearing any animal was a goldfish. I had one pet. It was called Goldie. I know, that's super original, right? Anyway, but yeah, the price of petrol, Lisa. The price of petrol. Well, I don't drive. I've never learnt to drive. The one driving lesson I had, I put my foot on the accelerator, the car went forward. I freaked out, immediately put my foot on the brake, and decided I was never doing it again. So the price of petrol, it's about 4 times higher than it is in the UK, in the United States, apparently. It's about 4 times higher. I can say that we are top of the list for having the most expensive utility bills in all of Europe. We are top of the list for that. So that's great. Oh, and also coffee. Coffee went up. Last month I bought coffee and it was £2.50. I went to buy coffee this week and it had gone up to £3.70. That's inflation. So for a lot of people, it's going to be a really rough Christmas. Which brings me back to the point of the strikes. All the workers who were striking. Now, I think I went through this list before, but to reiterate, just so you know, I mean, they're not all striking on the same day, thank goodness, although otherwise I don't even know if they'd be a country. But okay, so we have the border force. That is airport staff, anyone who works at any of the borders, be they in airport or rail, because the Eurotunnel, is the Eurotunnel even still running? I think yes, it is. It must be. Or at the ports, the seaports. So that's the border force. That's the people who in the ticketing offices, at the desks, making sure they're checking everyone's passports. All those people, they're all on strike. You have the firemen. They're about to go on strike. Apparently the coffin makers too, although to be honest, I think the coffin makers are probably likely not to be on strike for very long. They may well have already sorted out a deal by now. The RMT, that's the Rail Workers Maritime and Transport Union. They're the ones who, okay, there's two rail unions. There's ASLEF, which is the train drivers, and then there's the RMT, which is everyone else. So that will be the people who clean the platforms, the people in the ticketing offices, that will be the guards, that will be the catering staff on some of the trains, that will be everybody else. Oh, yeah, those will also be the signal men who work the signals and the people involved in maintenance and repair of the rails. They're all on strike. I think they're on strike today. Then you have the NHS. You have the paramedics are about to go. No, the paramedics, yeah, they're definitely going on strike because the army's been called out to take over their jobs. I don't know how that's going to work. The nurses have been on strike already. The junior doctors are about to go on strike. The porters, the cleaners, the technicians, healthcare workers. So these are all NHS jobs. You've got lecturer teachers, so people in primary school and secondary school, and yeah, they're all looking to go on strike. Lecturers, colleges and universities are all looking to go on strike. In fact, their strike has already started, I believe. The communication workers from the Communication Workers Union, the CWU, they've been on strike since the summer, and that includes engineers, call center staff, IT technicians. But it's not just the people who deal with things like broadband and telephoning. It's also call center staff. No, postal workers, the sorting office staff. Right. Apparently, the meteorologist at the Met office, they're planning to go on strike as well. I think they probably are. Well, I don't know. I don't know how soon they'll fix that, but they probably will fix that. Um, there are some shop workers who are hoping to go on, who are thinking about going on strike as well. You have baggage handlers at the airport, driving examiners. So those who do driving tests and stuff like they're planning on going on strike. Then you have, I can't remember what they call it. There's a civil service union, and they're planning on going on strike. So that's local authority workers, council officers, and all those types of people. Um, there's also, I believe, the binmen might be having a strike soon. I'm not 100% sure. The DWP, so job centre staff, are about to go on strike because some of them are having to claim benefits even though they're in work. So they're planning on going on strike. There's another civil service people who are also planning on going on strike is the Rural Payments Authority. So they're the ones who probably do payments for, I don't know, farmers or people in the countryside. They're planning on going on strike. Oh yes, and lest I forget, the people in the Home Office. The people in the Department of the Home Office, yes, apparently they're going on strike too. Hopefully, maybe I've left some people out. You know, there may be extra people on the list. There may be one or two people who are currently off this list because maybe they've settled their disputes and I haven't heard about it. Maybe one or two, but for the vast majority, all of these people are planning on going on strike. So things are pretty rough here at the moment, I have to say. Can the MPs pass bill to stop the strikes? Okay. All right. Well, there are bills that they're trying to push through Parliament at the moment. They are trying to stop people from going on strike, and they're using a number of different tactics. One of the tactics that they're using to stop people going on strike is to when well actually okay, all right, let me change that question around, because that question, while it's a good question, um there's another question that's just as important. I say it was even more important, frankly. They had the option to end the MPs, the government had the option, they had the opportunity, I would say, to end the strike. And they deliberately blew up the negotiations. Many of these strikes are about pay, but some of them are also about conditions. And in the place of the rail workers, conditions are feature just as strongly as pay. So the rail union met with the directors or executives of the train companies, and they came to an agreement about pay. However, the government interfered with the negotiation by, at the very last minute, just as they were about to sign off on it, the government interfered by putting in all these conditions surrounding surrounding work. They put in conditions that said that the train company had the right to get rid of as many people as they wanted to, um, without giving people the option of taking redundancy. So the train operators had the right to issue compulsory redundancies, to lay off lots of staff, and have driverless trains, and have mechanized services so they could get rid of lots of ticket office staff, and have trains without guards on the train, etc., etc. So that's what the government did, which should tell you, considering how long this dispute has gone on for, that the government are not actually particularly interested in looking for a resolution. In fact, I would go so far as to say they have calculated that if they want to look strong and they want to look like they know what they're doing and they're strong government and they're in charge, that it's good for the strikes to go on, because they think that they can break them. They think that if they let the strikes continue, then they can get a victory, um, by finding a resolution to the strike that in any way meets the demands for pay or for work work conditions, that they will be losing something. What they don't understand is that Thatcher, yes, she stood up to the unions in the 80s, but that was a different time, and the circumstances were markedly different. In this situation, we have inflation that is 11% or more by now, and we also have a major cost of living crisis where people who maybe earned 30 grand a year um, are now in a position where they can barely afford to heat their homes, pay their rent or their mortgage, because the cost of their mortgage is skyrocketed. Um, so we're in a very different situation today than we were in the 1970s. Um, Plus, it's quite clear that the government has failed, because the majority of the strikes are government workers. the majority of the strikes, not all of them, not all of them, but the majority of the strikes are government workers. They're people who work in either the civil service or whether it be the NHS, education, or communication. So they're the people that we clapped during the pandemic because they were seen as essential workers who kept this country going. And those essential workers who kept this country going are now being stigmatized as the enemy of the government. So, and they're being used as scapegoats for the fact that the government has failed. They failed in the economy and they have not kept pace with inflation or rising prices or anything because we've had wage stagnation now for over 10 years. So many of these workers who are striking right now, they've taken pay cuts in the past, or pay freezes, I should say, in the past, which actually resulted in being an actual pay cut. Or their wages had maybe gone up by 1% or something like that. So these are people who haven't had wage increases, reasonable wage increases for more than 10 years. And that's why things are as bad as they are. So one of the questions I want to ask tonight, because I think that the last time I read on this, it was very like, I think I said there would be a general strike. But I want to know today what you would like me to read on. Would you like me to have a look at the strikers individually, sector by sector? And when I say individually, I'm only going to look at two sectors today. I'd only look at two sectors today. So would you like me to have a look to see the rail strikers? Are the rail strikers, will they get a resolution? Or would you like me to go straight to the nurses and the healthcare strikers, whether they will get a good resolution? Which one would you prefer? Let's see. Almost all of the Western, yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is, they're trying to tell us that the reason why they can't give ordinary working people a pay rise in line with inflation is because that will instigate more inflation. But that's rubbish. And the reason why it's rubbish is because the people who sit at the top of these industries, most of them got massive pay rises this year. Most of them got massive, huge pay rises this year, well over 10%. Some of them got even 20 and 30% pay rises. So if you can afford not just one chief executive, I'm talking about many of the chief executives of many different industries got huge pay rises this year. And considering there was hardly anything happening last year, yeah, I will. Thank you for that. Yeah, because considering there was hardly anything happening last year, how did they earn that money? How do they warrant huge increases of 20 and 30%, but their workers only get 2 and 3% if they're lucky? How? So with that in mind, thank you. I will read on the nurses and the healthcare sector today. All right, so I'm going to do nurses and healthcare sector today. All right, okay. All right, what will be the outcome? What will be the outcome of the nurses' strike? What will be the outcome of the nurses' strike? Will the nurses get their pay? Okay, obviously the nurses here in the UK are asking for 19%. We know they're not going to get 19%. Will the government meet them halfway? Will the government meet them halfway? Will the okay, yes, so the nurses, let's see if the government will meet them halfway. All right. Okay, I'm going to do an overall arching energy for the healthcare workers. All right, Spirit, show me the overall arching energy for the healthcare the healthcare strike, NHS strikes. What's the overall archer enemy? What's the energy? Healthcare strikes. Will they be resolved? Will the healthcare strikes be resolved? How will they be resolved? Will the healthcare workers get a good resolution? Will they get a good resolution? Okay. All right. So these energy cards I'm about to pull, this is for everyone in the healthcare industry in the UK. I can't speak for other countries. I'm not reading on other countries at the moment, although I probably will in time. I've been thinking about doing some readings on what happened in Greenland. Terrible, terrible tragedy. Okay, healthcare workers. Will they get a resolution with their strike? What's around the resolution with their strike? Okay, resolution with the strike. That's better. Right. Oh dear. Okay. Right, so that's for the healthcare workers. Right, okay, so that's that bit there. That's the energy there. Right, I'll show you the cards in a moment. I'm just gonna do these ones quickly. All right, clarification, pointers, corresponding cards. Will the healthcare workers get a resolution with their strike? Will it be a good resolution that they can live with? Will they get a good resolution with their strike? One, two. I'm going to go with that one. Okay. Now. All right. Because I want to get this out of the way quickly, I want to, yes, I already did that, didn't I? Yes. This one is for the nurses. Okay. I'm going to cut the deck. Right. I'm only going to do 5 cards. Okay. And time scales. Please give me an idea of time scales. When can we expect a resolution? When can we expect a resolution? I'm going to pick 2 cards. When can we expect a resolution? Oh, and under what circumstances? Okay. 1. No, I'm going to go for this one. No, that one. 2. Okay, let's have a look. All right, first card I have, I think this speaks of the healthcare workers. Yes, you've heard about that. Yes, I want to do a reading on that. I'm planning on doing a reading on that. That is absolutely horrific and a terrible tragedy. Now, there are a number of other issues with women across the world. There's the issue with the ladies in Iran and Iran. And what am I saying, Iran? You know what? I spend too much time around Americans. No, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously. There's the issue with the women in Iran. And there's also so many issues happening with women in Afghanistan and all over the world. However, the one in Greenland, I really want to have a look at that because I think it's important. Although I haven't heard anyone else reading on it, I think it's important. It's tragic and awful, and I feel so sad for those women. So, yes, that's something I will be covering. Maybe this Friday, maybe next week, Monday. We shall see. However, let me continue. Okay, now the first card I got for the NHS strikes. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna take that off. Right. Okay. First card I got for the NHS strikes. Hero. Heroine. I believe this is the healthcare workers. These are all the people who work in the healthcare industry, all the people who work for the National Health Service. All right. After all, last year, year before last, we were clapping for them and calling them heroes or heroines, were we not? All right. So the light attribute, a passion for a journey of personal empowerment. That's who these people are. They have a passion to help to save lives, and some of them put their lives on the line. A clarifying card here is you are a grown ass adult. Stop blaming others for your shit. Now, some of you may wonder why I use such foul language um, in my oracle cards, why I love using these cards. I love using these cards because they get straight to the point. Yes, exactly. These cards, I'm telling you, these Caroline Miss cards, these Caroline Miss cards, there's something else. They are always talking. They are always talking. But yeah, when I see these two together, it tells me the government have messed up. They are blaming the nurses, the NHS staff for their own failures as an administration. Now, I asked, what is the energy around all the NHS staff? So this will cover all of the staff. But tonight, when I do the tarot, we're going to specifically look at nurses. Second card I got here was detective. Now, with this card, it says the light attributes, great powers of observation and intuition, a desire to seek out the truth. The shadow attributes are voyeurism and falsifying information. You see a divide here. The NHS unions, the unions for the healthcare workers representing them, have a desire to bring forth the truth. And some aspects, to be fair, of the media also have the desire to seek out the truth. Usually during strikes, the media will try to, well, I wouldn't say, they will offer up an explanation as for why things are happening. In our current situation, much of the media is very much leaning on the side of the government. But even some who normally would lean on the side of the government are now telling them they have to sort this out. They have the desire to seek the truth. Because the same people that we've been clapping for the last 2 years can't be the bad guys in this situation. And when you hear about how bad things have gotten in the health service and people waiting hours upon hours and hours for an ambulance, some people dying waiting for an ambulance, it's too much. It's too much. Now, the voyeurism and the falsifying information, that's coming from the government because they like to do a lot of meaningless talk. They like to use meaningless words and say things that are blatantly not true, or say them in such a way that you're like, hold on a minute, but that doesn't make sense. For example, the government are constantly talking about illegal migrants crossing the channel, right? And they're constantly saying that by rights, all these asylum seekers or refugees, they're supposed to seek refuge in the closest safe country, right? Or the first safe country that they come to. That ignores the fact that none of those things are true. We don't have any safe legal routes for the majority of asylum seekers to enter this country. So they are forced to cross the channel. It's not actually, although on one hand it's illegal for them to do so, it's not actually illegal, because once they've crossed the channel and they apply for refugee status, then it's perfectly legal. So if the government really wanted to do something about that, there would be a centre in France that was dealing with the applications. But there's not, because they don't really want to do anything about it. It's the same thing when it comes to the strikes. If they really wanted to fix the strikes, they'd do something about them. But they're not, because they don't really want to fix them. So they're trying to give out false information and put a false color on things, because that way they're trying to save some kind of face, but they can't save face, because these people that they're trying to make out as the enemy, everyone has been clapping them for the last 2 years. Okay, I have here as a clarification, ancient shit is cool. This is about the fact that the country had to practically push the government over a barrel last year when they tried to give the nurses, was it a 1% or 2% pay rise? And everyone bent ballistic and said, how could you do this? The nurses have just been through a major pandemic. They've been rushed off their feet. Some of them have died. Many of them have gotten long COVID, trying to protect the nation. They're like the fourth armed forces. Their role in protecting the nation. Okay, they don't go to war the way other armed forces go to war. Their armor is, with medication and care and attentiveness. And that's what they did through the whole pandemic. So many nurses are traumatized and are drained. And you want to turn around and give them a 2%, I think it was, pay deal. Eventually, they ended up giving them 3%, but that didn't really help them. And now we're in a cost of living crisis where the cost of electricity bills have tripled, and the cost inflation is like 11 or 12% now. People have to need reminding of the fact they haven't had a proper pay rise in years. And this is not just the nurses, this is all the NHS workers. The last card I have here for the energy is thief. Thief. The light attribute sheds light on the potential wealth within you that can never be stolen. The shadow attribute is stealing money, creative ideas, affection, or other powers you think you lack. The clarification is because I have to laugh. Okay. Okay. You know what? Again, we come to the two sides. The two sides. There's the one side, which is the healthcare workers. They are portraying, or they are the archetype of the light attributes. The potential wealth within that can never be stolen is their compassion and their desire to do their job, and their desire to do their job well. And that's something that's innate inside them. However, the government stealing money. Let's see. I think was it 37 billion pounds of PPE. There was a special lane for the supplies of PPE during the pandemic. There was a fast track. On this fast track, billions upon billions of pounds left the government's coffers and went into the pockets of officials, friends, families, acquaintances, donors, party donors. This is all verifiable and on public record. We have, so billions of pounds went to those people. Some companies hadn't even been set up when they made the application. Some of them were peers of the realm, like Lady Moan. Is it Baroness Moan, whatever her name is? Michelle Moan, that one. She's currently being investigated by the police, and I think her family got something like 60 odd million in profit. She herself got something like 29 million in profits on a PPE contract worth over 200 million. And that's just one. I'm sure there are others. So there's a theft that went on. I mean, you could say it wasn't a theft, it was necessary, it was good that all these private companies came to Britain's hour of need. But 37 million, a lot of that PPE is currently being stored, and it's costing us somewhere in the region of, is it £400,000 a day to store it? And this is the PPE that we couldn't even use. Some of it's been burnt, sold to be burnt for various incinerators, maybe to generate heat and electricity. But it's being stored and it's costing us £500,000 a day at the moment, or thereabouts. Then there's the other 37 billion that they spent on test and trace that didn't actually work. So the shadow attribute, it's like they're trying to take the shine off the healthcare workers and what they do, to try and put it on themselves and say, no, 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 don't listen to them, listen to us, listen to us. Look at all the wonderful things we did to try and keep the country going during the pandemic. Yeah, you say it was them. Yes, you were clapping for them, but really you should have been clapping for us. And it's this echo chamber, this narcissistic echo chamber. Why is it that way? They don't want to pay them, even though they could if they wanted to. And it wouldn't cost them as much as they're saying it will cost them. But why won't they do it? Because that's why. So looking at the nurses' strike specifically, I have here the Hermit. Three of Coins. The Ace of Spears. The nurses are not alone. They're not alone. So the Hermit, really? Okay, the Hermit is often, as I like to call the Hermit, Hermes Trismegistus. The Hermit is about looking within. The Hermit can also be about isolation, contemplation, meditation. What am I seeing here? The question I ask is, how will the nurses' strike conclude? I would say, you see, the thing is, out of all of them, out of all of the strikers, the ones that really hurt the most people, the ones where the most people are the most angry, and I'm just talking about across the country, the ones where the people are the most angry, and then the vast majority of people are on the side of these strikers. that would be the nurses, more than any other group, more than all the groups combined, the nurses. So I would say, looking at this, because to me, this is a card about kind of going alone and looking within. And yet at the same time, it's right next to the Three of Coins, which is about coming together and working stuff out. So it's almost like they're at cross purposes. I would say okay, I would say that this could possibly, all right. So this to me is giving me the vibes of intelligence, wisdom, meditation, and patience. And there's a deliberation here, of course, because the nurses haven't gone on strike. They haven't, we haven't yet felt the full force of the nurses' strike. Nurses' strike, I think only 25% of their members actually went on strike. So this is so they've actually stayed their hand. They've held back. They've held back. And then they decided to come together and work on this and bring it to the forefront. So they held back and held back, and then they decided to come together and use their brains to fight this fight. And then after all of that, okay, after all of that, they fired up. They fired up and decided to make their move. So this is really kind of like the present, I would say. Actually, no. You know what? I'll take that back. It's not the present. That's the immediate future, I think. Let me just fix that. Okay. Yes. So at present, as I said, they come together to make a decision. The hidden influences. Hidden influences. And this is the spark of creativity. This is them coming together. They've already come together. This is the moment when we are actually going to see. Because if the government don't step down, there should be a fear there. There should be a fear, because the strike was only for 25% of the members. So if they go and they decide we're going to do a full-fledged strike, now obviously they're not going to just leave people to rot on the wards or anything like that. But if they decide to go, heel to ass and do the whole thing, I don't even know if that's the right term. If they decide to go the whole way, I think that, I think that it. I don't think it's going to work out well for the government. I would say this. I mean, there's two spears here. I would say for this is being fired up, forces set in motion. This is they're ready. They're ready to go. They're ready to go all out. The nurses are ready to go all out. They are literally ready to, yeah, they are ready to do that. But, and this is the thing, this is the key, this is the key. There's going to be a champion, probably the lady who represents the nurses union as the champion. But I'd say this person isn't even necessarily from the healthcare sector. I think this is somebody else. This is someone else. This is someone else who rushes in and runs to the rescue. Someone is going to rush in and run to the rescue because this is a very real possibility. And by that, I mean that if another strike happens and they decide to escalate the strikes, it's going to be super ugly. It's going to be horrific, especially if they get involved in the general strike that I already said is going to happen in January. It'll be horrific. So I think that before that happens, somebody is going to head them off. Now, does it mean, I mean, normally in a 5-card spread, it's like there's a hit. This would be the advice card, right? So the advice card is somebody from the outside of the nurses union needs to come to the rescue and rescue this whole situation. That's what needs to happen. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what will happen, but that's what needs to happen. However, the likely outcome is that the nurses will win. And what do I mean by win? I mean that their government is going to have to step down. They're going to have to step back. I wish they would step down. Please give us a general election. But no, they're going to have to step back. This is a fight they can't win. This is a fight they can't win. When do I think the battle for the nurses will be over? Okay. Right. I would say I think that the battle will be over maybe in about 9 weeks. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. Spirit is very cagey whenever it comes to timing. Ask any psychic, they will tell you. When it comes to saying, oh, yeah, it's going to happen next month, it's going to happen 2 weeks from now. Yeah, Spirit doesn't really do that because being in spirit is not part of being in linear time. Being in spirit is part of being in the eternal now, the eternal presence, which means every moment in time is happening at the same time. It's not the same as being a human and living a human experience. So trying to work with spirit is difficult. No, not trying to work with spirit is difficult. Trying to work with spirit and getting spirit to take on your idea of time as a human being is difficult. But I had these two cards come up and I said to myself, I said, all right, when are we going to find a resolution and what mode? Yes, I think I said what mode. What mode would the resolution be in? Okay, so the mode, for the mode, I got Taurus. That's what I got for the mode. And that's about trust, patience. It says sensuality, but we're not trying to be sensual with healthcare workers here. But trust and patience. So although this is about trust and patience, two of the cards I got here were about fire and soul and spirit. So is there going to be a resolution? Absolutely yes, because I got a yes card here. But this is about fire and soul and spirit. But this is also about trust and patience. Having a steadfast heart. That's it. That's it. A steadfast heart. That is what will win the day. And then this card, I said when. And I'm looking at this heart, and the heart's got flames and all kinds of stuff coming out of it. Oh yeah, flames and wings and like a staff with a light on it. I don't know if anyone can see. I don't know what that means. Anyway, a steadfast heart, and then I'm thinking, I asked when, and I think maybe it's 9 weeks. Maybe it's 9 weeks. It could be 9 days or 9 weeks. What it won't be is 9 months, because this will not go on that long. And yes, the nurses union, they will be victorious. They will get the pay rise. That they won't get as much. They will not get 19%. They will not get 19%. Okay, for some reason the number 9 keeps on coming back here. It's possible. It's possible. I'm not saying it definitely will happen, but it's possible they might actually get 9%. I don't know why. I was thinking this was more to do with the weeks, but they might get 9%. You never know. It might happen. It might happen. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here because I don't use these cards very often, and sometimes I might not vibe with them that well. What I'm going to say here is and this is an if this is the percentage that they might get, then this might be how long the strikes last. Now, that doesn't mean going to May. That doesn't mean going to May at all. It could actually mean 3, as in the third sign, because Taurus is sign 3, right? So it could mean that the nurses maybe it'll be 3 weeks, but I'd say 3 to 9 weeks for the nurses. I think I can see them getting 9%. You know what? I'm going to just say it. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Time will tell. All right, so that's that bit done. Oh, hello, good evening, good evening, good evening, musings by Manifa. Good evening, Manifa. Yeah, a steadfast heart. I stand by that, though. I stand by that. I stand by that. A steadfast heart. A steadfast heart, and a stoic one at that. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the mode they went in. So, right. So there's that. There's that one. You know what? Because I talk a lot and everything, I am going to leave it there tonight. Why? Because I talk too much, as you all know. And two, I need to cut down on the times of my readings. I'm so bloody long. I'm so long. I'm too long. I've got to try and get these down to like under an hour. So, yeah. Yeah. I got to try and get these down to under an hour. So I'm not going to do another reading tonight on this, but I will probably come back for the Rail Workers Union. So I don't know what I put in the description of this one. But yeah, I'll probably come back for the Rail Workers Union. So we'll have a look and see what's happening with the rail workers and if they will get a resolution. To be honest, I'm really worried about them. I am worried about them. But I think they'll have a general strike next month. I just have this feeling there'll be a general strike next month. So, yeah. All right, people. I know it's incredibly irritating the fact that I did not put in. Oh right, okay. Yes. Yes. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? Because I asked the question and I don't want it to be clickbait. All right, I asked the question. I did ask the question. All right, Spirit, I asked the question. I feel like there's going to be a general strike. But Spirit, will there be a general strike in January? Sometimes I talk so long, I actually forget the question I was asking. So let me just ask quickly. I'm going to just pull 3 cards, just really super quick. Really, really super quick. Will there be a general strike in January? All right. Hopefully I will see what I need to see. I beg you show me. I beg you show me in 3 cards or whatever you think. Just show me quickly. I don't want to be here all day. All right then, cool. Right then, let me have a look. See, I'm going to pick that one right there. 1 and 2 and this one here. 3. All right, will there be a general strike in January? Their support. Is people coming together to celebrate, or just people coming together? And there's a 10 of coins. All right. I think that's a yes. I think that's a yes. You know what? I'm just going to do it. What did I say? What did I say? People coming together. Oh, man. Hard work. All right, cool. Yes, see, people, that's exactly what's going to happen. There'll be a general strike. I just said it. I knew it. I was waiting because when I saw the Three of Cups, I was like, there's people coming together to congratulate each other, to celebrate. What is this? Or is this an excess? Is this some man who's, okay, either he's being super supportive, okay, and he's the King of Cups, being the supportive, nurturing self, and all the rest of it, wise and fair and all the rest of it, or he's in his cups, but he's not in his cups. A celebration, yeah. And then you've got the family, the legacy, or should I say the party with nobody there, where there's nobody there, yeah. So it's like there's a party, but nobody wants to go to this party. And then you've got the people, the people coming together. There's going to be a general strike. Definitely. There's going to be a general strike, and the government are going to be hard at work to stop it. They're going to be trying to push through legislations to stop people or scupper the union's abilities to go on strike. All right, so with that, I am out. I'm going. This has gone on too long. I need to do something about the length of my readings. This is ridiculous. All right, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Lovely to see you here. Thank you, Manifa. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone who's joined me in the chat. Everyone who wants to watch at a later time, thank you. Please like, please share, please subscribe, please share this. If you would like a personal reading, you can email me at showingtheends@gmail.com. And I think I probably ought to start putting my prices and my contact information up. I think that might actually help. Yeah, it might do. Okay, so good night. Oh, hello, Sylvester, darling. Thank you. Be well, everyone. Have a wonderful week. And whatever time you see this, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.